back to the question of how much did it cost to maintain my car, and we see people with 100,000 miles on their car at the transmission shop, and they're having a transmission repair, and they say, "Wow, the car's been perfect up to this point. I haven't had to do anything." And let's say it is a major repair, they say, "I'm just going to go get a new car."
Yeah, the one I like is, I can't imagine what would be wrong. I've never had to do anything to this car. It's got 400 million miles on it. I've never done anything. It couldn't possibly have a problem.
Well, my answer is always, well, how old is your car and what should it cost to maintain? Because if your car's 0 to 30,000 miles, that puts you in one bracket. If it's 30,000 to 60,000 miles, that puts you in another bracket. If it's 60,000 to 90,000 miles, that's a whole nother bracket. So when you get a car, these are the budgets that you need to build for yourself. So if you do have a brand new car, you're fortunate enough to have a new one and you're driving it, and you know, what do I need to put in my budget?
So we're talking mile 0 to mile 30,000. What do we have to set aside, and what should you typically be doing?
Well, most people drive about 15,000 miles a year if it's the regular round-town commuter vehicle. So that's 15,000 miles a year. So in a couple of years, from 0 to 30,000 miles, you're going to get 5 or 6 oil changes.
Well, our case study is Dave's Honda Element. So,
and believe it or not, just out of habit, I take the thing to the dealer to get it serviced. Just because my buddy runs the service department, and I take it up there, and I don't want to take it to anyone's shop I know in case I want to yell at them.
So you're going to get 6 oil changes. They're $30-$40 a piece. So you got a couple oil changes there.
I've bought an air filter already with all the haboobs lately, and I bought a cabin filter because of all the haboobs lately.
Probably going to want to have the tires rotated and balanced at least once in that first 30,000 miles, maybe around 15,000.
And I'm at 24,000 miles now, and they're starting to tell me the front brakes are getting thin. So there's going to be a front brake job probably in the first 30,000 miles of operation.
Well, yeah, brakes on a standard import car or domestic car in that mid-size class range. We typically see those 27 on the early side, 35,000 on the top side. And then you have some anomalies. Those Chevy trucks go 100,000 on brakes.
I've seen that a few times, yeah. So basically, in the first, I know I'm going to do transmission service. I know I'm going to do a differential service. I have been rotating the tires, and I've gotten a balance so far at this point. Just other little miscellaneous, set of wiper blades here, set of this, set of that. Basically, in the first 2 years, I'm going to spend $1,200, $1,300 in maintenance.
Total.
So if I break that down over the 24 months, I'm roughly about $60 a month that goes to my car if I spread it out over the 24 months.
And that's one thing, and we weren't this just came to my mind, part of this budgeting for, but if you're going to go buy a new car and you say, I can afford $400 a month, well, maybe you better afford $465 a month, or if you can afford $400, maybe you work your payment to the $325 range, so you know that you're setting away that extra $65 a month.
I thought you were pretty good at automotive. I'm going to need a battery too. That's another $150. So
eventually,
there you go.
And in Arizona, 32 months is the typical life of a battery. So and then now we're in 30 to 60,000 miles. You're pretty much going to duplicate
everything you just did. So you still got the $1,300, but this time we need a set of rear brakes. Because rear brakes, 30,
maybe,
could be some rear brakes in there.
They might go to 70, but then you're going to have. Maybe you're going to get a flat tire. No, besides getting a flat tire,
a set of tires.
You're going to get a set of tires. So now you got to start. Now it's a different set of budgets, and you get in that 45, 60,000 mile range. Now you're going to come up with another 30,000 mile service, which is basically your 60 is your duplicate of your 30 typically.
So in our case study of the Honda Element, on the second go-around, the second from 30 to 60,000 miles, we're predicting about $2,500 in maintenance, roughly $100 a month, if you figure over the 2 years. So that's what should be in the budget.
Over year 3 and 4.
Over year 3 and 4. And that's if nothing breaks. This is just maintenance stuff, regular wear and tear that's going to happen to the vehicle.
And some of those things, again, are tire rotations, air filter. Now, if you buy a set of tires, you're off the hook on the rotations because most places include free rotations. I know we do at our shop. Buy tires, you get free tire rotations. We take care of them forever. But when you get those new tires at 35, maybe 45,000 miles, you're going to want an alignment. There's another 70, 80, $100.
Right.
4-wheel alignment might be a few pennies more. Service the transmission again. So, what do we come up with for our monthly expenditure to set aside for years 3 and 4, Dave?
Years 3 and 4, 100, $110 a month.
110.
You know, if nothing breaks. So, but it is something you need to write into your budget because it's normal just wear and tear. Back to the question of how much did it cost to maintain my car, and we see people with 100,000 miles on their car at the transmission shop, and they're having a transmission repair, and they say, "Wow, the car's been perfect up to this point. I haven't had to do anything." And let's say it is a major repair, they say, "I'm just going to go get a new car."
Yeah, the one I like is, I can't imagine what would be wrong. I've never had to do anything to this car. It's got 400 million miles on it. I've never done anything. It couldn't possibly have a problem.
Well, my answer is always, well, how old is your car and what should it cost to maintain? Because if your car's 0 to 30,000 miles, that puts you in one bracket. If it's 30,000 to 60,000 miles, that puts you in another bracket. If it's 60,000 to 90,000 miles, that's a whole nother bracket. So when you get a car, these are the budgets that you need to build for yourself. So if you do have a brand new car, you're fortunate enough to have a new one and you're driving it, and you need to know, what do I need to put in my budget to fix this car?
We're talking mile 0 to mile 30,000. What do we have to set aside, and what should you typically be doing?
Well, most people drive about 15,000 miles a year if it's the regular round-town commuter vehicle. So that's 15,000 miles a year. So in a couple of years, from 0 to 30,000 miles, you're going to get 5 or 6 oil changes.
Well, our case study is Dave's Honda Element.
And believe it or not, just out of habit, I take the thing to the dealer to get it serviced. Just because my buddy runs the service department, and I take it up there, and I don't want to take it to anyone's shop I know in case I want to yell at them.
So you're going to get 6 oil changes. They're $30-$40 a piece. So you got a couple oil changes there.
I've bought an air filter already with all the haboobs lately, and I bought a cabin filter because of all the haboobs lately.
Probably going to want to have the tires rotated and balanced at least once in that first 30,000 miles, maybe around 15,000.
And I'm at 24,000 miles now, and they're starting to tell me the front brakes are getting thin. So there's going to be a front brake job probably in the first 30,000 miles of operation.
Well, yeah, brakes on a standard import car or domestic car in that mid-size class range. We typically see those 27 on the early side, 35,000 on the top side. And then you have some anomalies. Those Chevy trucks go 100,000 on brakes.
I've seen that a few times, yeah. So basically, in the first, I know I'm going to do transmission service. I know I'm going to do a differential service. I have been rotating the tires, and I've gotten a balance so far at this point. Just other little miscellaneous, set of wiper blades here, set of this, set of that. Basically, in the first 2 years, I'm going to spend $1,200, $1,300 in maintenance.
Total.
So if I break that down over the 24 months, I'm roughly about $60 a month that goes to my car if I spread it out over the 24 months.
And that's one thing, and we weren't this just came to my mind, part of this budgeting for, but if you're going to go buy a new car and you say, I can afford $400 a month. Well, maybe you better afford $465 a month, or if you can afford $400, maybe you work your payment to the $325 range, so you know that you're setting away that extra $65 a month.
I thought you were pretty good at automotive. I'm going to need a battery too. That's another $150. So
eventually,
there you go.
And in Arizona, 32 months is the typical life of a battery. So, and then now we're in 30 to 60,000 miles. You're pretty much going to duplicate
everything you just did. So you still got the $1,300, but this time we need a set of rear brakes. Because rear brakes, 30,
maybe,
could be some rear brakes in there.
They might go to 70, but then you're going to have. Maybe you're going to get a flat tire. No, besides getting a flat tire,
a set of tires.
You're going to get a set of tires. So now you got to start. Now it's a different set of budgets, and you get in that 45, 60,000 mile range. Now you're going to come up with another 30,000 mile service, which is basically your 60 is your duplicate of your 30 typically.
So in our case study of the Honda Element, on the second go-around, the second from 30 to 60,000 miles, we're predicting about $2,500 in maintenance, roughly $100 a month, if you figure over the 2 years. So that's what should be in the budget.
Over year 3 and 4.
Over year 3 and 4. And that's if nothing breaks. This is just maintenance stuff, regular wear and tear that's going to happen to the vehicle.
And some of those things, again, are tire rotations, air filter. Now, if you buy a set of tires, you're off the hook on the rotations because most places include free rotations. I know we do at our shop. Buy tires, you get free tire rotations. We take care of them forever. But when you get those new tires at 35, maybe 45,000 miles, you're going to want an alignment. There's another 70, 80, $100.
Right.
4-wheel alignment might be a few pennies more. Service the transmission again. So, what do we come up with for our monthly expenditure to set aside for years 3 and 4, Dave?
Years 3 and 4, 100, $110 a month.
100, 110.
That's something, you know, if nothing breaks. So, but it is something you need to write into your budget because it's normal just wear and tear. Now, it's been in the news a lot with this Ford Escape and the unfortunate situation up in Prescott with the throttle sticking on the Ford Escape. And you kind of need to think through this one before it could happen to you. I've had the throttle stick, and what happens is your heart rate goes up, and all of a sudden you can't think.
Freeze.
What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So I want everybody to have it programmed in their mind. Not that this happens on a regular basis, but we had the Toyota Prius for a while. There was some issue.
Well, and all the Toyotas, and now this Ford Escape.
And they don't have throttle cables per se. The Ford Escape does, but the Toyotas drive-by-wire, right? So it's a little actuator motor on the intake manifold that opens up the throttle body opens it up. So what do you do when your throttle sticks? And you know what?
Well, after that half a millisecond of panic, you got to get yourself together. I mean, I've never had it happen to me.
You can't just lay on the brakes and expect it to stop the car. It is just going to keep going and going and going. You'll burn those brakes up and they'll be on fire, but
neutral.
Put the car in neutral.
Get it in neutral. Put the clutch in if it's got a clutch, and let the engine blow up.
The one time I did have the throttle stick on me, it was on a modified Jeep, and it stuck, and I was in third gear, and I was doing like 75 miles an hour when I finally because I knew what I needed to do. I just didn't want to blow the engine up. And when I put the thing in neutral, it took the torque off the engine, and the thing came out of, unstuck the throttle.
Fell back down.
So put it in neutral. No engine is worth a life, or the lives of others.
Yeah, in the all the modern cars have rev limiters. They're going to start cutting back fuel, cutting back spark, and the engine will be going ding 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 ding, ding, on the top of the rev limiter. But so what at that point? But not turning off the key, no good. You're too much of a chance of losing steering or anything. Just get it in neutral and stay calm and slow down, and then get the thing turned off when you're stopped. So.
Well, 60 to 90,000 miles. What should I expect as a budget for maintaining my car? And this one gets a lot more expensive. You know, first we were budgeting $60, $70 a month. Then we're $100, $110 a month. Now 60 to 90,000 miles, a lot more things happen.
You know, and this reminds me of Dave Ramsey. I listen to him. You get your envelope. Doesn't mean you're spending $60 every month on the car, but you got to put that $60 or that $120 a month in the envelope or in the mentally wherever you need to put it.
When you don't do that, when you do need to spend money on your car, it's awful.
It's gone.
A lot of anxiety, you know. So I would say a lot more is going to happen. 90,000 miles, you know, timing belts. You know, again, you're still needing air filters and cabin filters, brake fluid services. If you're going to keep the car for 200,000 miles, which a lot of people are doing, you may want to think about servicing the power steering fluid. Things like that. Transmission service is going to come, you know, battery in there.
Some of the optional services. A lot of these services you won't see in the manufacturer's recommendations. But our experience and the experience of good qualified shops and technicians know that these fluids wear out. They deplete. They lose their ability to function and lubricate. And if you're going to keep the car, really, I mean, I have customers 200,000-300,000 miles. The thing is pristine. They've always been in good communication and talked about the maintenance and how to keep it just right.
Well, you may end up spending $400, $500, $600 maintaining the engine. Set of spark plugs is going to come due. You know, timing belt's going to come due. A water pump may come due if you're doing the timing belt. So the number I came up with is $3,200 over that period of time from 60 to 90,000 miles. That's if nothing breaks. That's $150 a month over the 24-month cycle there.
Yeah, and we're talking about keeping it tip top. This isn't just going and getting oil change when I remember and gosh darn it, I forgot and it's 5,000 miles past due and I'll wait on this. I mean, this is really keeping this car, you know, right on the money. So, showrooms, you know, type, just fully maintained.
Put it in the budget. It takes some of the anxiety out of getting your car maintained and fixed. Well, let's go with Jeff on a 2006 GMC Yukon. Go ahead, Jeff. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Great. Hi, guys. I've got a problem with my air conditioning on the Yukon, where it's the climate control thing where you set the temperature and you can change it somewhat, but it keeps on. It won't adjust up when I first get in the car. It won't. The fan won't kick into high, and then sometimes when I turn off the vehicle, it keeps on running. The fan keeps on blowing.
So it will blow on the lower speeds, 1, 2, 3 maybe, but it doesn't work on high. and then sometimes when it does work on high or not, the fan just keeps running.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
There's been a fairly common problem on those Chevy trucks.
GMC in his case.
GMC Silverado, a Tahoe, and they've got a pretty common problem with the relay sticking. Just kind of arc welds the connections together, and they will intermittently stick, and that's probably what you're looking at.
And last week we did have a phone call about the blower speed issue where the guy was losing 4 and 5, and we were talking about grounds. So there could be two things going on there.
Yeah, and they have a blower motor resistor. But what happens is the relay turns on the fan and allows the fan to work. But on most cars, the system bypasses the resistor. You need full power all the way. So it's a direct connection right to battery power through the relay, and you get a high amp draw blowing that fan. Maybe you got a restricted cabin air filter making the fan work a little higher, draws a few more amps, starts heating up that relay. So,
well, thanks for the call, Jeff. 602-277-5827, 602-277 KTAR. Let's go with Mark in Glendale on a 2004 PT Cruiser. Go ahead, Mark. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yes, sir. Hey, guys. Hey, I just got to give you guys some kudos. I had another car that I took into one of your recommended service providers and did me very well. So I just want to say thank you for that before I talk about this PT Cruiser.
Okay, and if you want to mention their name, go for it.
How about Tri-City Transmission?
Ooh, okay. Ooh. Dave, did you plant that call?
I did not plant this call.
I didn't want to make your head get too big, but hey, whatever.
He had a hard time walking in the door today as it is. I think he's going to be stuck. He's going to be here for a while after.
Because my head's so big.
You won't be able to get out.
Hey, I had this PT Cruiser that I have a high school kid that's been driving it around. I love the car because it goes 0 to 60 in about 60. And I thought, okay, my kid's now going to college. She doesn't need this car anymore, so I'm getting ready to sell it. So I put it in for a tune-up, got it tuned up, and the shop said, hey, you need new shocks. And when I took it in there, the car didn't bounce. When I got it back, you could take your index finger and push down on the rear bumper and make it bounce. I kind of feel like somebody let some air out of the shocks. Am I naive, or can you give me a little guidance?
How many miles are on the PT?
It's got buku miles, 170,000 miles.
Okay.
But the whole thing is, 2 weeks ago,
right?
There were no issues with the shock,
okay.
And now it feels like it bounces like a trampoline.
Okay, Mark. Well, we're probably gonna have to carry this call over till after the break, but nobody can let any air out of the shocks, and I can say with 170,000 miles on it, I'm sure those shocks were worn out. But we'll talk about that. You go in the repair shop and they check things out, and you don't really think you have a problem, and you get the list, or that a lot of shops find things, and you really may not want to know about it.
Well, we've got Bill and Dave. We're going to go to Dave, and then we got a couple open lines. So Dave has a 2001 Echo. Go ahead, Dave. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Well, thanks. I have 160,000 miles on it, and it had the engine light come on. I took it in and had my favorite mechanic inject some smoke and ended up replacing some parts. This happened about 3 times, and all 3 times at about 190 miles later, the light would come back on.
Now, when you say light, that's the check engine light or the red engine light?
The check engine light.
Okay, and so you must have had an evaporative leak or some kind of vapor leak if you was putting smoke.
It was a common emissions code.
Okay, so then what can we help you with? What's the question part now?
My thought is I'm trying to figure out is what possibly could be next. I mean, he's replaced some parts that were showing some leak with the smoke, and he's pretty much at a standstill, a loss what to do next. But
okay, well, some of those evap codes they're tricky. It sounds like he's got a smoke machine or a tool and what we do is we inject at very low pressure smoke, like your little choo-choo train when you were a kid made smoke.
Mine didn't. I wasn't that spoiled. I'm sorry.
Whatever. So you're very low pressure. You're putting that into the fuel system. You might even be putting it into the engine to see if it's coming out of the vapor, the crankcase ventilation side, and you're just looking for smoke. You can put a leak detection dye in that oil too, so it will show up in ultraviolet light. The smoke will have a yellow haze to it and will leave a mark. And it's just a matter of finding where the leak is coming from if there's a leak. And a lot of times in the Toyotas, the leak valves and leak detection pumps, they show that they're working and the computer thinks they are, but they stick. The little pintle that opens and closes to let the air go by is stuck, and the sensor doesn't recognize it. A lot of times you've got to pull the fuel tank down and get access to the top of the tank. So he's on the right path. He's just got to keep on going. And
well, it's interesting. It said it didn't come back for 190 miles before it came back. And these cars actually are self-testing cars. So what it does, there's a leak detection pump, LDP, that actually pressurizes the evaporative system, and it waits to see how long it takes to bleed off. Well, it has to have exactly the right circumstances in order to do that. It may need a fuel tank that's half full. It may need the right atmospheric pressure outside in order to run that
temperature.
test. So even though he fixes a leak, really he won't know the proof of how successful, or if there's an additional leak beyond that. Sometimes you're the test person because you got to go drive it till it runs that test.
Well, and some shops have more sophisticated equipment than others. In my shop, we can force those tests. We have a special program, and you can force the test to run. And then
what if the gas tank's only? It's got an eighth of a tank. Will it run the test?
No, I force my guy to go put some gas in the tank. I give Bergie the keys, and I say, Bergie, would you go please put some fuel in Mrs. Jones' car? We need to get the VAP test run. Then when you bring it back to Charles so he can finish the
test.
So he can force the test.
Well, what if the tank is full? Do you take the gas out of the tank and put it in your car?
No. Come on, Dave. So those can be challenging at times, but he's on the right track. It's just a matter of just maybe he got the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. And
easy stuff.
And that happens. Sometimes you get the blinders off. You open the hood. That's what it is. See it right there.
Right.
And then you don't continue looking a little further. And it happens.
I don't think he's doing anything wrong or necessarily misdiagnosing anything. Sometimes it's a 1 or 2 or 3 step repair. So thanks so much for the call, Dave.
Back to Mark with the PT Cruiser. At the end of our second segment before the break, Mark was talking about his PT Cruiser. He went in for a tune-up. And he was a little disappointed that they told him that he needed rear shocks. Now, you got to remember Mark's PT Cruiser, he told me off air, it had 170,000 miles, I think is what he said. And I asked him, I said, when you went in, did you tell him that you were having any other concerns? Did you want them to look over the whole car? Or did you just say, he said he went in for a tune-up. And I said, well, did they tell you they were going to do a courtesy check or look the car over? He said, well, I was a little taken back when they called me about the shocks because I didn't really think that had anything to do with the tune-up. Mm-hmm. Well, if a shop is doing their due diligence, they're going to be looking over the car. And Mark maybe thought, maybe they let some air out of the shocks or something. Well, you just can't do that. And at 170,000 miles, I'm sure they're worn out. But, it's not uncommon, Dave. I have a customer come in, I test drive the car. Immediately I feel a motor mount's broken. And you call them and talk to them about it, and they go, gosh, I never felt that. I said, when you pick it up today, if we don't do the repair, you're going to feel it.
Right.
Sure enough, the next day they call. That's what I have been noticing that, and I didn't ever know. So when you're in your shop, this is where the relationship part comes in. You've got to get to a guy that you trust, establish that relationship, and ask questions. And if you want them to look at the rest of the car, let them know. If you don't let them know, and at the same time, they should be telling you, we're going to look everything over for you.
Right.
So you have an expectation.
So, well, thanks for the call, Dave, and good on Mark's point. Let's go with Bill in Phoenix on a 2003 F350. Go ahead, Bill. You're in Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Long-time listener, first time getting in. Running out of options. I got the 03. It's got a 6.0 diesel. It's got an automatic in it, 4-wheel drive, dually. I've already changed transmission once because my shifter light started blinking and it just wouldn't move. So the shops told me I needed to get it rebuilt. Had it rebuilt. Ran it for a year or so. Started doing it again. Well, after about a year of in and out of the shop, I finally got frustrated and just went out and got another transmission, a complete different one. Put that in there, and now when I'm climbing, runs great, but when I'm climbing or pulling something like up a hill going up towards Flagstaff, the shifter light comes on again and it won't let it go into high range.
Well, Bill, I think what we've got going on, I'm not sure about, the initial transmission you had in there. It obviously failed. What we need to understand is what that shifter light is that's flashing. When your engine has an issue, the majority of the time it's going to turn on the check engine light. When it really has an issue, it's going to flash the check engine light. Well, the overdrive light is what you're referring to that's flashing on the end of the handle. What that's referring to, that's the check engine light, but for the transmission. It doesn't mean that we necessarily have, it could be a transmission control issue. I know we said we got a different transmission. I think we've got still some problems. But we're going to be able, that's going to be a fingerprint of what's going on when you're driving up north. So they're more than likely, driving, it may be a transmission temperature is getting warm. I start to think of people on the highway towing or up hills, whatever it may be, that we may be starting to have a torque converter clutch slip. And that's going to be like a P0740 or 741 code that they're going to be able to pull out of the computer to say this is what's going on.
But now Dave, because the transmission problem will also turn on the check engine light, not just always the overdrive light, but not always either. So
not always.
You have a mixed bag there at times.
Yeah, so if the overdrive light flashes, and really all the listeners can benefit from this, they may be seeing that overdrive light flash. Or on a Honda, you'll see there's the drive, reverse, neutral, those little lights on your dash. If you see the D3 or the D4 light flash, that's the same thing as what we're talking about on the Ford. You don't want to ignore that, because let's say in this Ford truck, and this is 6-liter diesel, there is an issue with the torque converter clutch. Well, if you catch it soon enough, well, maybe you don't have to rebuild the whole transmission or replace the transmission. It could be something as simple as a solenoid that's got an issue, but if you ignore it, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, and at times, or all the time, the transmission is simply doing what it's told to do. So is it capable of doing what it's told to do, or is it being told to do something it shouldn't be doing? And that's how we figure out what the problem is. We've got to drill that down.
So get into the transmission shop, have them scan the transmission control module to see why that light flashed for sure. So the fact or fiction for today, we talked about leaving the car idling even with the kids in it, and that's not a good idea. But is extended idling of my engine bad for my engine? Fact or fiction?
Fiction.
He was on Google. He Googled that real quick.
Nah.
It's bad for the environment.
Well, yeah, Maricopa County has a law, 15 minutes of idle time. That's it.
That's all you get.
Yeah.
Well, I got remote start on my car in the summertime. I started up maybe 10 minutes before I get in it, so it's nice and cooled down. Okay, I'm lying. Actually, 15 minutes. I want to make sure it's nice and cool.
Yeah.
But I notice when I'm doing this in the summertime, my gas mileage has just plummeted. So even though it's just idling, it is using gas, and at $3.50 a gallon, not necessarily a good idea.
Same thing in my excursion. I hit the button, taking the girls to school in the morning. It's getting hot out there. And so we hit the button, but if we get a little bit late to go out there, it shuts off at 15 minutes. They will not let you run more than 15 minutes.
I took mine to 20 minutes. So
I'm calling the county. I'm getting Sheriff Joe after you, Dave.
You were reading something, and you look like you're standing on a soapbox. Do you want to say something, Matt?
Well, no, Mark had called and talked about the PT Cruiser, and this is a question that we get a lot of emails about, pricing and emails about having my car looked at. I was reading a website for a shop here in town, and to me, this is a person that maybe you don't want to take your car to. And I'll summarize. It says, we're not in the sales business, and we don't inspect every car that comes in and give you a list of the work that needs to be done. We simply don't have time to do that. I believe the owner of the car should not pass that responsibility to the shop. Now,
you have an arrogant tone today, at least when you said that.
If I go to my attorney or my doctor, they're the experts, and I expect them to take the responsibility for what they're telling me.
They got to look out for my best interest. I don't need to do their job. That's why I have a professional. So, and there is a couple types of customers. There's customers who like to work on their own vehicle, and yeah, they fit that. But then there's some people who say, I really just don't care. I want to know that I know you, I trust you, I want you to take care of my car, and we're going to be doing business for the rest of my life here in town. So that's the kind of relationship. When I have a lawyer, I got to let him be the lawyer. I can ask good questions to understand what he's doing, but I trust him.
Be involved, ask the right questions, and establish the relationship. I know my physicians that come in that work at St. Joe's or in the area there, they're not under the hood checking their stuff. That's why they come to the professional, and we gladly accept that responsibility of taking care of them. And we're going to take Gil on his 2007 Expedition. Gil, what can we help you with today?
Yes, sir. 2007 Expedition, the problem I have with it is every time I hit like 70 miles an hour, the front of the car vibrates. And I had put new tires, new rims on it. And every time I tow a trailer with a motorcycle, and it vibrates in the back of the truck. And at 45 miles an hour. And I don't know what's causing that.
And you've had the tires balanced?
Yeah, they're brand new tires. They've been balanced, and we thought that was, and that's not it. And even the mechanic went through the car and see the drive line, and he couldn't find nothing bended, nothing wrong with the car. He couldn't figure out why it was doing it.
And you get a shake in the front end, or you feel it a little bit in your butt?
I heard two problems. I heard 45 miles per hour when we're towing, when we got extra load on the back, and we're probably squatting the suspension a little bit. So that's going to change the driveline angle. So I think that's just a driveline angle with the extra tongue weight of the trailer. And then the vibration at 70 miles per hour, that's going to be nothing more than just tires. And I know they've been balanced and rotated and that type of thing, but there's still something going on there.
Well, no, Dave, we'll back that up a little bit. We talked about it with breakfast with Johnny. He had a Suburban that ate his lunch, and I had a Toyota Sequoia minivan that just ate our lunch. We balanced tires. We defected out a couple of the tires. We were just, if I weren't bald, I'd be pulling my hair out.
You do have a goatee you can work on.
Yeah, really. I need get some of the gray out of that baby. But anyway, you got to go there always.
I do.
So, but what we found, and what you might have them try, but I don't think the 07 Expedition has rear drum brakes. What we finally ended up doing, we pulled the brake drums off the truck and put them on our tire balancer. They were like 5 ounces out of balance. We took a brand new quality brake drum out of the box, put it on the tire balancer. It's perfect. Now, I wasn't sure what I was going to find putting a brake drum on a tire balancer, but at least we know when we take a known brand new one and a known used one, you would expect them to at least be the same. So I didn't have the exact specifications. Put the new drums on the truck, bam, fixed.
Well, I would still be looking at the tires. That'd be my first thing. But if that's not it, we got to start digging deeper, look at things like rotors and drums and that type of stuff. But I think with the load of the tongue weight, that actually changes the driveline angle. So I can see some vibration with that. You may even find that when you get 5 people in the back seat of the car, that, man, the car feels different. What happens is you're squatting the suspension down more than it normally is, and it's going to change the pinion angle where it goes to the drive shaft. So thanks so much for the call. Let's go with Tom in Wickenburg on a 2003 Dodge Diesel. Go ahead, Tom. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi. Like I say, I got a 2003 Dodge 2500. It's got a 5.9-liter turbocharged Cummins motor. The problem I'm having, intermittently at an idle, it will lose RPM, then it will gain RPM, and it will oscillate back and forth until it will, the motor will shut itself off. If you give it a little bit of throttle, up to like 800 to 850 RPM, it seems to smooth out.
Okay, when you're driving that though, does it seem like maybe it's downshifting or upshifting? Is this an automatic transmission?
Yes, it is.
Do you have any problems at higher speed, maybe in that 45 to 47, 55 mile an hour range, where it maybe feels like it's also surging or hunting a little bit?
No, not at all.
No? Okay.
No, I think Matt's leading on toward maybe a torque converter or transmission is dragging the engine down at idle, and I have seen that.
Well, not at idle, not at idle, but if it's a torque converter problem that you're having, that all relates back to the throttle position sensor. So you could still have I'd be looking at maybe a throttle position sensor type of problem that maybe just hasn't made its way into the torque converter transmission control unit, because you could have a ground that's starting to go bad. Check your battery connections, your battery terminals, and make sure they're all good. That's going to be the very best place to start. There's some ground wires that go up and ground on the intake manifold there. Want to make sure those are clean. That's where I would be looking at for surging things to start with, making sure that the computer understands the position of the throttle first.
Hey, Tom, I see you're in Wickenburg, and I don't know what there is up there for diesel shops, but just a trip down I-17, we've got Kurt's Auto Repair. They're great at diesels. A little further south, Southwest Diesel is another good diesel shop, but either of those two shops can help you with that. So.
Yeah, Southwest Diesel is a parts supplier. They're a repair shop, and they're also the leader of the pack, I should say, to the Bosch diesel service centers. So even a phone call to Southwest Diesel, they might get you pointed in the right direction to somebody in the Wickenburg area that can get you hooked up with and get you taken care of.